All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and go through a couple problems. The first one we're going to look at, it's going to be something a little unique, and I want to make sure you have a decent idea of how to go about handling this. So as we look at this here, I'm going to write this down. 8x plus y equals negative 16. And then negative 3x plus y equals negative 5. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to have to go ahead and look at your variables, your x's, your y's, and if you were to add down right now, it wouldn't work out. If I was to add down, I would get positive 5x and I would get positive 2y. And our whole goal is to eventually get either 0x or 0y. So why don't you write that up here? Goal to get a 0x or 0y. And make sure you remember that. That's super important. This is your main goal, is to get through that, to get a 0x or a 0y. So as I look at this, we're going to do something called, basically, it's called solving systems by multiplication. But I tell my students it's basically like giving the problem a makeover. You're going to make the problem over. You're going to change it. You're going to manipulate it. All different kinds of words of just telling you you're going to change one of these equations. And in algebra, it's great that you can change a whole equation by multiplying the whole thing. So guys, with me, can you put a parenthesis? I'm going to walk you through the first one. And then as we keep doing this throughout the day, it'll start to catch on. And even if it doesn't catch on today, it'll start to catch on tomorrow and come Friday. Okay? So I put a parenthesis around this equation, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply a number to all three of these terms that'll eventually get me either a 0x or a 0y when I add down. And I'm going to help you out with this first one. And I'm going to multiply this whole equation by negative 1. And if I multiply it by negative 1, let's go ahead and do this. Go do the first jump, and then eventually the second jump, and the third jump, we're going to get, what's that going to be? Positive 3x. Because anytime you multiply by negative 1, you're just going to change the sign. It's not going to change the actual coefficient, just the sign. Negative 1 times y, well, that's a positive 1. That's going to be eventually negative y, right? Or negative 1y. And then what's negative 1 times negative 5? Positive 5. Okay? And underneath this, you're going to write a note for me. You're going to write change bottom equation by multiplying each term by negative 1. Now, that's the note we just did. Now we're going to move on to the next one, because at this point, I want you to see that we changed this whole equation now to this equation. So what we're going to do is kind of softly just cross this out. That doesn't exist anymore because we manipulated it. We gave it a makeover. This is the old equation, and we changed it to the new equation. And now let's go ahead and move this over here. So I'm going to have 8x plus y equals negative 16. And then 3x minus y equals 5. And I know Cleveland's been able to teach this pretty well, and my classes should do pretty well with this. You should know now that this equation is ready to roll. There shouldn't be any issues. It should be pretty simple now at this point because your equation skills are solid. I know you guys can handle this one. So go ahead now and solve for the x value. Now once you've done that, you're going to get 11x. You're going to get, I'm going to put plus 0y, even though it's absence of value here. And then negative 16 and 5 is going to be negative 11. Okay? You guys know that once you have a 0y, it's canceled out. I have 11x equals negative 11. Divide 11. X equals negative 1. Okay? Now that you know what x is, great, let's go ahead and, I like to put it up here, guys. We've been going over this a lot. I put this little piece here of the puzzle, and then you can pick any equation you want. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the top equation. I've been telling you guys that. I'm going to pick the top equation, and I'm going to go ahead and put that there, and then eventually plug in your x, and solve for your y. And then keep going. And then I also want to make sure you always put your answer in a coordinate form, right? So it should be -1, -8. And be clean with your work. You're not going to see a bunch of these on the benchmark, on the final, I've been calling it to my class. But when you do, take your time on it, all right? Now, let's just kind of rewind again. What did we do? We changed the equation by multiplying it by something. Now, the next one we do, we're going to actually do it by something bigger than -1. So let's go to and this is like next level. We're leveling up right now. So our next level here, let me write this one out for you. It's going to be, make sure I don't give you the same one I gave on the homework here. So it's going to be 10x minus 7y equals -18. And then 5x plus y equals 9. And take a second and look at the problem. Remember what our goal was. What's the top of the sheet say? Our goal is to get a 0x or a 0y. If I look at these x's, if I add down, I get 15. That's not going to work. And if I add down here, I'm going to get, what's that, -6? That's not going to work for me either. So I have to change, I have to manipulate or give the problem a makeover. And I want you to realize that basically to get from 10 to 0, wouldn't that be the opposite of 10, which is -10, right? For -7 to get to 0, wouldn't you need it to be +7? Okay. And are there things you can multiply here? So this is actually one that you could do two different ways. I'm just going to show you the first way here. So if I wanted to get rid of these x's, this is +10. I would have to make this -10. So I hope that a number jumps out at you that I could multiply the 5 by 2, and I could get to -10, but actually not just 2. It'd have to be -2. And if I choose -2, I have to multiply -2 to all three terms, okay? Now, what if 2 didn't jump out at me right away? What if I was looking at the y's? I see -7. What's the opposite of -7? I could have chose to multiply this by +7. So I'm just going to put or 7. But right now, we're going to choose the -2, okay? Just no, we're choosing the -2. So -2 times 5x is -10x. -2 times y is going to be -2y. -2 times 9 is going to be -18, okay? And we're going to go ahead and cross this out because we've given it a makeover. And we're going to move over this equation. 10x minus 7y equals -18. -10x minus 2y equals -18. Okay? Now let's go ahead and solve this problem. You guys can handle this. Now that this is set up, you look down, you get 0x. Go ahead and solve this problem and get me an answer. You guys are great at this. Don't forget, a negative divided by a negative is a +4. All right, now I always put that piece of the puzzle right here, and I'm going to go rewrite my first equation. 10x minus 7y equals -18. Plug in my y. Make sure you always plug in the right coordinate. That's what I saw a mistake with my kids yesterday, is they would plug in the actual answer in the wrong variable. You have y, you better put it in for y. So this is going to be 10x, 7 times 4 is 28. Don't forget the negative. Okay, keep going. And we're going to get 10x equals 10. Divide it. X equals 1. Make sure you write this out in a proper form, 1, 4. And you are good to go.